Hey, Big Life listeners, we hope you are just excited about your upcoming soccer season as we are for the Big Life's new season. And since it's preseason for all of us, sponsor Ida Sports is ready to help us kick off season 3 with a little fun game of two truths and a lie. I know it's been a second, Jordan, but let's see if you remember me.
As if I could ever forget.
Okay, so which one of these is true out of the three statements? I just love how hot the turf is in August when we're running those preseason sprints. Burpees are my favorite way to get into shape and do a little something extra. And I always rock a new pair of cleats when the season gets going.
Oof. That's tough because I think you are just crazy enough to want to do burpees to get in shape. But I think it's got to be cleats, right?
It's got to be cleats. I mean, come on now.
Who doesn't want to start the season with fresh boots? It's the best way and best part of soccer is when you get those fresh cleats on your feet to go ahead and start the season right.
Absolutely. And because Ida knows preseason is getting underway, they've given us a special code. So Big Life listeners can get 15% off cleats, turfs, or indoor shoes when you use code Big Life or visit idasports.com/discount/Big Life.
That's amazing. I really do love my Idas. What's great is that I know when I put them on, these are the cleats that are designed by a woman and made specifically for the shape of a woman's foot. I'm happy and proud to have them and have them back as a sponsor.
Yeah, I feel the same way. Go ahead and do your back to soccer shopping at idasports.com and make sure to use code BIGLIFE for 15% off a pair of Ida footwear, Ida cleats, turfs, indoor shoes, whatever it may be, or visit idasports.com/discount/BigLife. Hey everyone, we are back with Big Life season 3. You know we missed us, you missed hearing our voices in your phone, but Jordan and I are back. Jay, how are you feeling?
I'm feeling good. It's been a minute since we've been together, I feel like. So there's a lot to catch up on.
Exactly. And we went in solid. We pressed record once we joined the Zoom. So because of that, everything is new information for Jordan and myself. So I'm excited to hear about the extent of everything. Life feels like it's crazy right now. I don't know if it's just my perception, but I feel like the world is changing. I feel like there's just so much going on in every sort of aspect. And it's been interesting. I'm not gonna lie. Jay, how was your summer though?
It's been a roller coaster of a summer. One, it went by so fast.
Yeah.
Like you blink and it's over. I feel like last week I was taking my finals and now you're telling me we're back into it. Second day of preseason here, first day of real training. Like that's not real. That can't be right. Summer did not last nearly long enough, but it was definitely a roller coaster. I think last time we touched on my injury, and that's pretty much been the main focus of my summer is being able to rehab and get back to there. I had quite a few setbacks throughout the summer in terms of getting back to my play. Originally, we went through it. We thought it was a partial tear in my PCL. We did the lockout brace, got the mobility brace then, and had a return to play kind of protocol from there. It turns out I have a full tear in my PCL. And then, a lot of my summer was spent figuring that out through the process and then figuring out what to do with that information. I can go on a little rant here afterwards about, I think, the way the medical world should work within athletics, because I do think there's way too much pressure and there's way too many umbrellas that a athletic trainer has to wear. And I think somewhere throughout all of this, there was a breakdown in either communication or lack of knowledge about my injury and return to play protocol, where we were not doing quad and hamstring strengthening after I got out of that lockout brace when we should have been. And because of that, I think I had a lot of the issues where the back of my knee was popping and it felt like I got shot. Like I was hurt, I was down. And then every time that happened, I was out for a week. And that happened 3 times throughout the summer. And that kind of 3.5-month period from where we were doing a return to play to when we found out I had a full tear in the PCL. So we go through all this. I don't think we rehabbed properly, even though I was here all summer. I think we should have known better considering everything that happened. And a lot of the effects were from me being in a lockout brace, that my hamstring and quad weren't up to where they needed to be. But because of that, we weren't doing it. And I had these issues. And then I find out about a month ago, maybe 6 weeks ago now, we got an additional MRI. They had thought I tore my meniscus and that's what the popping was. We got the imaging back. Meniscus is fine, but it was a full tear in the PCL, not a partial. So then you're talking about surgery options and things of that nature. Surgery would be over a 1.5 year recovery from it. It's one of the hardest knee surgeries to kind of return to play from. And it was presented to me almost like it was like a 50-50 option where I can either decide to play without a PCL or get surgery on it. I got a second opinion outside of MSU at the Cleveland Clinic where, and the more we talked about it, the less of an option surgery really seemed like it would be. I mean, one, it would be the end of my career. I'm not going to come back after missing 2 seasons and into my 7th year of college at that point. But it turns out you don't need your PCL really. You can compensate with your hamstring and quad strength, and it will hopefully do the job of the PCL. And because nothing else was torn, it was isolated. I don't really have a whole lot of instability within my knee. It was more about the strengthening of it. So that was an emotional roller coaster, obviously, where I'm here. It presented to me as a 50-50 debate. It was emotionally draining where I'm like, is this the end of my career? Like, can I come back from this? Can I play without a PCL? Because I've been having all these issues throughout my entire summer. Like, can't play right now. What's going to change? And then, going through all that, it was just so emotionally draining.
Yeah.
Anyhow, there's my rant. But now we're at a point, I've been rehabbing it. We're about 93% symmetry in my right knee to my left knee. I have been going 100% without a brace. We tape it up, but full contact, full running, everything like that now for the last 2 weeks. I'm definitely still feeling some of the effects because overall, I tore this back in March. It's been 5 months of this just process of getting back to play. So I'm still feeling some of the effects of that, obviously, in my fitness level and just some of the rust. But for the main part, my knee, I feel like is holding up fine. Obviously, it hasn't been tested in game scenarios yet, really. But between practice, between, running, everything like that, I'm happy with where we're at. We've done all the strength testing, everything like that, behind the scenes with Biodex and all those fancy machines to see the actual numbers behind the symmetry of my two legs, my hamstrings and quads. So it's looking like, it's going to be good in the end, but it was a roller coaster of a summer for sure. And I think I have a lot of frustrations with the way that it was handled.
Yeah. I mean, wow. I don't even know what to say to all of that. That's
right.
Emotional and intense. And I can't honestly imagine how you feel dealing with all of that. And now going into what is your final season of college athletics and everything, there's a lot emotionally going on to balance as well as what you want out of your senior year. So I can only imagine and say that myself as well as our community is ready to support you in whatever way that is.
Yeah, thank you, thank you. I think the best thing that came out of this though is when you're looking at retirement early, I'm looking at that because that's what my reality was at the time. You have a whole new level of gratitude to just be here. I feel like in the past I was so focused on what I was able to accomplish and fulfilling this potential that I had as a soccer player. And especially we talked about going into my senior season, the idea that the potential dies the day that last whistle blows. That's as good as you ever were. There is no more potential left for you to accomplish. That is as good as the players you ever were. So I was chasing this goal and this timeline and I was so stressed about the fact that the clock was ticking down and I wasn't ready for it. I feel like now I have a whole new lease on it where I'm happy to be here. Every single day I get to be here is added bonus time from that decision, and we'll see. We'll see how the season goes. I still have high hopes and expectations for myself to accomplish, and I do think it's still possible. However, I'm happy to still be a Spartan. I'm happy to still wear the jersey and represent and to be a part of this team because I am not ready to retire. I need those 6 months.
No, it's all fair. That's totally, and it's a reality, I don't want to say I'm excited for this, but it's going to be very interesting to cover, your last season and how it differed from mine and different perspectives and potentials. Obviously the future for you is unwritten. I mean, there's so much potential that can be, but it also maybe the last 6 months, whereas I kind of always knew I was going to continue. So it's going to be an interesting journey to follow. And I'm excited for that and to see your growth already through it. It's going to be good. How is preseason day one, start of that, first lasts? I remember going through it. How has that been for you?
It's weird. It's weird the way I feel about this now as a senior, looking at it this is my last beep tester running. This is my last time I have to sit through the meetings and learn what defense is or what offense is. These are all lasts. But also I've already done them 3 times. So all that anxiety or build up, all the stress from it, senior year just feels so different. Like it just, there's a different attitude about it where there's nothing left to worry or care about. This is it. Like this is the end. The second that whistle blows and I step foot on the field, my eligibility is over and we're in our last season. That's it. There's nothing left to really hold on to and to have that anxiety for, to worry about like stepping on toes or doing these different things and kind of those, social dynamics of things where, it's senior year. It's so different and it's so weird to do these things now and being like, okay, like this is the start of the end, start of the lasts. And, we've been here for 2 weeks already doing conditioning, lifting, training, all of that good stuff. So it doesn't really feel like day one, really. We had all our meetings yesterday. We got our gear. We've already done media day, bunch of meetings with compliance, all that stuff before our official start. And then today was the first day of actual practices where we ran our fitness test, did some possession drills. And then I believe tomorrow we're just playing and kind of getting a real feel of where everyone's at in more of a game-like scenario with the coaching staff present and, a little bit higher intensity than probably what we've been able to accomplish on our own.
Yeah, that's what I remember. I remember my last season just feeling different. There's a different emotional and weight, but also like you said, relief to everything. It's kind of like you've done this, you've been here before, you know where everything is, you know what preseason's gonna look like, and so there's so much more, I think, focus on the things that feel more important, and you kind of know what's more important and what's not. I don't know how you obviously feel. You said you're in the fitness test. I feel like every athlete's like worst nightmare is that fitness test of some sort, that anxiety that you get. And I remember my last season, I was just kind of like, I know I can do this. I know I'm in shape. Let's just freaking run it. And so how did that go for you and the team and everything like that?
Yeah, I think like a month ago I was having issues. I couldn't sprint. I would run and then my shin would separate from my knee and I'd be on the ground. Like I got an 8. I ran a fitness test in a PT session and I got an 8. My record is 43. So you're looking back 6 weeks ago when we started this process after figuring everything out, and that's where I was at. So I'm really happy with how I performed now. I'm way more fit than an 8. I promise that was the start of it. But yeah, I mean, it wasn't my best test by any means, but I've been out for 5 months and we just started this process going back. But I'm happy with my score. I'm happy with where I'm at, knowing that we still have time. Season is still, it's very long. There's still plenty of time to get fit and to catch up. And I think it's about the same fitness wise as I was coming in last year after an ankle injury where I was at. So I'm not too concerned about it this on day one. I think overall, people were a little surprised with their scores considering what we've been doing, just kind of all over the board. You had the anxiety of the freshmen running it for the first time, and you had the people who maybe performed really, really well in the spring who didn't, break their records like they thought they were coming into this. Or, overall, I think it was just a lot of mixed emotions all over the board of people being super pleased with it, some people not being super pleased with it. But as a team aspect, I think it's day one. It's the standard of where we're at now. And then you can just improve from there because we're only going to get better and more fit. So it just depends on who you're asking, I guess, for how it went. Everyone has a different opinion on it. Some people performed well, some people didn't. But at the end of the day, it's day one.
That's fair. That's fair. We had a whole session, like a whole layout, and this is going to go, but I think we are already in the nitty gritty of college athletics. So let's just stay there. Jordan, I have been following the news. Obviously, I'm across the world still. It's weird, obviously, starting preseason and not being in Iowa and seeing everything happening. And that's a lot going on. And then I scroll through Twitter and I look at the news and so much is changing. Can you go into some detail about what you're hearing on your end about all of these new changes, not starting this year, but next year in college athletics, and your perspective on how that's going to affect women's college soccer?
Yeah, I'm trying to even remember what everything is. It's hard to, knowing that this is my last season. I think I keep up with it a little bit less because
This doesn't affect me.
really affects me. Yeah, pretty much. It's like, okay, like it'll be interesting to watch it happen, but keeping up with it now, like I'm trying to remember what all the rule changes were. So obviously we had the realignment, which we talked about, that's affecting us this year. Going into next year, you have, I mean, from a business standpoint of Michigan State University, you got the revenue sharing, you have the roster caps, which also affects scholarships. So instead of having, do you know what women's soccer scholarship is?
14,
11? Oh, 15.
14.
14. 14. Wow. All right. So instead of having 14 full ride scholarships now, I believe everyone on a 28-person roster can receive scholarship, either partial or full ride, depending on how the university funds it. And you can only have up to 28 people on your roster. That's the max cap. I think some of this affects other sports like football, who was either full ride or nothing, a little bit more with the roster cap because now they can receive partial scholarships as well instead of just full ride or nothing. Women's soccer has always been you can receive a percentage, so that doesn't really affect us as much. The roster cap will. Right now, Michigan State has 32 players. Next year, we'll have to be at 28 in order to meet those standards. I think with a lot of this too, you're getting NIL situations where it's still kind of a gray area. I'm not sure all the details. I don't think anyone really does. It just keeps changing more and more every year, every month even. But I believe the university is now allowed to pay athletes directly. So originally you were able to receive scholarship, and then there was an Austin scholarship that you can receive up to $6,000 a year, a little bit less, but essentially $6,000 a year for each student athlete for being on the roster. And your school can choose to opt into that or not. Luckily, Michigan State for us does, so we receive that money. But now in addition to that, your university can pay you directly, almost like a salary, or I don't even think it's an NIL deal. I think it's literally just salary basis. They didn't just pay you to be on their team and pay you directly for that, which is very, very new. I think you're already starting to see some of the effects, at least here in Michigan State. I think we've had some budget cuts in some areas for sure, with the idea that they're going to take that money now and pay it directly to their athletes. We used to have a director of ops. Now one of our coaches kind of handle that area now as she left. You've had people in the weight room kind of leave, and you're dispersing that job throughout the rest of the workers now. Like you're definitely starting to see some of those budget cuts. And I think they'll happen more and more as players are trying to be competitive, especially with football, or teams are trying to be competitive with football as they want to pay those athletes. And then hopefully the idea is you start off, you pay the athletes, you do well in your season, and then you gain back that money and go from there. But I think that's kind of the biggest extent to that I'm going to see is some of those budget cuts to hopefully pay those athletes. The rest of it, though, doesn't really affect me, and it won't, luckily, because I think it's going to be completely different. And they're still coming out with more and more rules. They're far from done, figuring out what the 2025 season is going to look like. So it'll be interesting to watch for sure. But I believe that's where we're at right now. I could be missing a whole legislation though.
No, you are spot on with what I am aware of going on. And it's something that I know Jay and I are going to continue to follow. And we hope that this season we have someone even more educated than us come on and talk about all these changes. Cause I think that this is something that is just showing how college sports, especially the impact of women's sports and non-revenue women's sports, has evolved. And the impact is just kind of unknown in a lot of regards. And I think that it's showing that college sports is turning way more business centric. It's a lot more focused on the business than maybe we like to talk about or see in the past. I've blatantly said it a lot of times, but I'll say it again. I'm thankful I graduated when I did, because all of this new stuff is getting crazy. But yeah, we'll hopefully have someone a bit more educated than us come on, and we will be following everything going on with that situation as we can.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The other thing that's like super unique that I'm interested to watch is Michigan State is one of the only self-funded athletic programs. So we don't receive any money from Michigan State University to fund our athletics. We are self-funded in that aspect. All of our scholarships, everything that we do as an athletic department comes from donors, grants, and self-revenue throughout the season. So I'll be interested to see if that's still possible with all these rule changes, as well as like the revenue sharing aspect, how that's going to affect. Big Ten will be fine. I think Power Four conferences will be fine. How that's going to trickle down and affect some of those lower conferences, NAIA schools, D3, things like that, who are getting a huge cut from the NCAA in terms of what they're receiving to fund these programs in sports. So couple years, it's gonna look completely different than what me and Sam did. You're lucky you got out last year. I'm lucky I'm getting out this year because it's definitely not gonna be the same soccer and the same setup we signed up for. It's gonna be way different.
I know I'm definitely hearing and seeing on social media and stuff that like coaches are going to be way more hesitant in recruiting their 2026 class because they have to see, I know at one point in my IO career, I have no idea what roster number they're at now. We were at 35. So you already have to get down from 35 to 28. And you have to weigh in your 2025s coming in who aren't signing their NILs till November. And you have your recruiting going on. So my sympathy is with all of these coaches also trying to balance these, as I'm sure they don't know all that information either. And yeah, it's an interesting jungle, but also you have to get ready for the 2024 season. And on top of that, in the Big Ten, we're going to add 4 more teams. So, Jay, I know we haven't really talked about this on the pod. Can you talk a bit about your Michigan State schedule and what you've heard? I know one of the biggest questions is how is Big Ten going to travel? All of the, different schools and adding 4 West Coast schools, all of this. So what does that look like from your standpoint for your 2024 schedule?
Yeah, so I'm gonna pull this up so I don't mess it up because things have changed.
But that's fine. I'd only bully you a little bit.
It would be embarrassing indeed. And it would be something I would do. Absolutely. So our Michigan State schedule is our first game is an exhibition against DePaul. It's the only exhibition we're having this year. Normally we have 2. This year we're only having 1. And then you go and you have our home opener August 15th against Notre Dame. Those are both pretty normal. We go through then our non-conference schedule. And then our first conference game is at Maryland Thursday, September 12th. After that, our main trips, we're doing a Oregon-Washington trip, which is the new teams that were added, and then Ohio State, Penn State?
Okay.
I don't know. Yeah, Penn State's Sunday, and then Ohio State's Thursday. That would be the only other big trip we would have this year. The rest are pretty much home games or single away games where we would go and come back pretty easily. And I don't even know if they would make that a trip or if we would just come back and then bust Ohio State, which is what I would assume they do, but I don't know. I don't know about that. I will figure that out in September. That's above my head right now. But yeah, our big trip that we have is Oregon and Washington. We don't play UCLA. I think I don't know if we're unique in this way or if we just got lucky, but it doesn't really change much for us in terms of our travel schedule. Usually you have one big week-long trip at least. Occasionally you'll have 2, but usually it's about 1 week-long trip that you go. That's how the NCAA or Big Ten likes to structure it. And then the rest are a mix of just home and away games depending on who you play, and you try to structure it in a way where you're balancing that between both you and the other schools you're playing. So there's an even amount of home and away games through that. I think the most interesting thing that I still don't have answers on, I don't know if our coaching staff even does, or if the Big Ten has decided, is if there's going to be a conference champion this year.
Next question. Okay.
I think there's going to be a conference champion, just less weight on it. Whereas in previous years, probably your normal season conference champ had a little bit more weight when you're talking NCAA rankings, just because it's a balanced schedule. You're playing everyone. It's a longer period of time to judge performance. Now, I think a lot of that decision-making, a lot of that weight is going to be held on the tournament because you have such an unbalanced schedule throughout the season. There's so many teams we're not playing this year, where in previous years, you only don't play 2 teams. So yeah, we don't play several teams throughout the season. So there's going to be a lot more weight on that tournament. I still don't know the structure of the tournament, how many games we're playing. Dude, I don't know. We have meetings later today where maybe they'll fill us in, or I don't even know if our coaching staff really knows at this point because things keep getting restructured and changed like every day.
Okay, you heard it here first, dropping on the big life. What is the Big Ten soccer tournament going to look like this year? Because, yeah, I'm sure you're adding 4 new teams. How are we going to extend? Because originally it was only the top 8 went through. There's a lot of questions. And once again, I'm happy to be watching from across the world. But it's going to be really interesting to see it go down. And, I'm sure Jordan wanted to casually remind you that she was the 2023 conference champion. And one of the things...
And 2022.
Oh,
22, 23?
Yeah. I remember what year it is before you start talking, sis. Um,
I just I know there's two of them, and they were back to back.
And on top of that, I know obviously this is season 3, I guess, of the Big Lives now, but all the way back in season 1, Jordan and I found ourselves playing back to back. And if I'm right, I don't even think Iowa plays Michigan State this year. So it would have been so sad not to have that kind of mashup that we had last time. So at least we
Yeah, we
got
had to make up for it, you know? They decided to get it back to back, and we're good for the next couple years.
honestly, we sell it up for you guys. I was in East Lansing too many times.
It's all right. I think I've only been to Iowa once. I went my freshman year, and I don't believe I've been there since.
Yeah, I do feel like we often play in East Lansing. It's always a weird balance, like of how that shakes out. And yeah, now adding more teams, it's gonna be even more. So it'll be interesting to see our commentary. But Jordan, do we have a vibe on the Big Ten this year? We're adding 4 new teams. There are some like prediction polls going out of how Big Ten soccer is gonna look. Obviously, the big thing is, USC, UCLA joining the Big Ten. How do we feel about, the overall structure of the Big Ten, strength and schedule wise?
I mean, considering how little I know as a senior going into this, I can't imagine what it's like to be a freshman in the Big Ten right now and truly have no knowledge of what's happening and no experience to back anything up, really. I don't I don't know. Obviously Michigan State's gonna win it all. Like naturally. And then you're talking to through, the rest of whatever makes
You don't
I
even
don't
know how
know how many,
teams.
I don't even know how many make the tournament this year though. I was gonna say tournament makers, but I don't
Yeah.
even know how many there are this year. But I think it'll be interesting to see how these new teams fit in. I mean, there's 4 new teams. I think UCLA is obviously the biggest one coming in that everyone's watching. They always perform really, really well. However, the performance they had in the NCAA tournament last year, it'll be interesting to see like how they come in starting this season in a new conference. Guns a-blazing, I'm gonna assume something to prove after getting out in the first round of NCAA last year. So I think that's the most interesting team I want to watch this year. I think you have the obvious teams that always perform really well, Penn State. I don't think there's been a huge amount of turnaround in a lot of these Big Ten teams where you're looking at new coaching staff or whole new rosters like that. I think it's kind of the same. I could be wrong here, but I believe it's kind of the same Big Ten you have seen in previous years, just with the addition of these 4 new teams and to see how this all plays out and how they fit in. I don't know who's playing who from other schools. Like, I don't know who's playing UCLA and or who else is going to the Oregon Washington trip, but we'll see. I mean, honestly, I have no idea. I barely know what's going on here at Michigan State, much less the other rest of the Big Ten at this moment. So I don't know. I think I'm just excited to watch to see how this all plays out because truly, I just want answers at this point.
Yeah, that's fair. I think my biggest question marks, it's going to be interesting to see the impact of the class that graduated last year. Of course, that's one of the classes I'm most familiar with, being a part of it, but I think you have a lot of incredible talent that has graduated and moved on, whether it's Emma Jaskinek from Wisconsin, Eleanor Dale, who is the NCAA leading goal scorer from Nebraska, plenty of names at Penn State, Pete Linehan, Kate Wiesner, Samantha Carey from Iowa. A lot of big names from the Big Ten have graduated. So I think it's going to be really interesting to see that impact. Celia Gaynor from Michigan State, there's going to be an impact of that class leaving. And it's going to be really exciting to see who fills some of those shoes that I feel like were names that were known across the Big Ten.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think you get that every year, and it's always kind of a scramble to see where everyone falls in, especially I think Penn State, now that you're mentioning it, like probably had the biggest loss of that talent from that class, biggest turnover from the players that graduated and went pro.
Throughout the rest of the season, we have plans to hopefully bring on, coaches and players from these 4 new schools and talk about how the integration into the Big Ten is going and different perspectives from that standpoint. And, following this ever fluid, ever changing role that is college soccer. That being said, Jay, we'd be ignorant if we're not talking about it's Olympic season. I have the huge perk for the first time in my life to be watching the Olympics in the same time zone as the Olympics are going on. So all games are in prime time for me. Everything I get to see and eat dinner at night and watch everything and at a normal time instead of like waking up at 4 a.m. like I feel like we have in years past. Jay, have you been watching any of the women's soccer coming from the Olympics?
I have not been keeping up as much as I have in previous years. Yeah, I know, I've been slacking here, but honestly, I probably watch more gymnastics, to be honest.
Valid. I mean, as we're recording, the women's all around or the women's team events going on. So I haven't paused that way. It doesn't get spoiled with me, but I was, I'm watching Simone Biles as we speak.
Oh yeah. I mean, three of my roommates are gymnasts, so I feel like naturally like I have to. But we have Canadians on our team. I think that's the biggest conversation within it right now is that whole scandal and how that's playing out and how it's going to play out with them. And I have been keeping up with that quite a bit, but I think I've seen a lot of clips and stuff on social media and I've watched bits and pieces of the games here and there, but I haven't been able to sit down and, fully watch a game yet this Olympic season. So I promise I will, but you probably have more insight than I do in terms of the performance of our Olympic team right now.
Yeah, there's so many questions that this Olympics have brought up so far. I think, one of the biggest ones you hit the nail on the head, the Canadian scandal. For those who maybe don't know, I'm assuming if you listen to this podcast, you keep up with women's soccer enough to know what's going on in Canada. But the New Zealand national team reported a drone recording their practices on two separate occasions at the Olympics. It got investigated that it was Canada's drone. And so the coaching staff has been removed from the Olympics, as well as FIFA placed a negative 6 point punishment on them, basically meaning for Canada to advance to the next round, they have to win all of their games and other, dream scenarios have to align. That has happened so far at this point. Obviously, by the time this podcast airs, hopefully we're not out of date. Canada upset France in a lot of ways and, won 2-1, which is getting them in position to still advance, even though this punishment has occurred. And there's a lot of debate about whether this is a just punishment. And, as players, we really have no say what our coaches do. This on so many aspects. So is it fair to punish the players and potentially not have them advance in the Olympics that they deserve to advance in because of something that they can't control? And yeah, there's a lot of questions that this has brought on. And, what are your Canadian friends back in Michigan State saying to all of this?
I think they're just like heads down, we're obviously giving them a bit of crap for it because they're Canadians and like, come on, guys. And they're like, we have literally nothing to do with this. But I think the hope for them is that they deduct from instead of 6 points, they go down to 3 points and that they'll still make it through all this. Cause like you said, the players don't have the ability to really control what the coaches do like at all. And it doesn't seem like they had any knowledge that this was going on, considering they wore their shirts and stuff inside out for their next game, not representing the Canada logo or anything like that. So I think they're just hopeful that this will all work out still for them in the end. And it'll be interesting to kind of watch and continue. But what's your take on it? Do you think that the punishment is just, or do you think that it's a bit extreme?
It's a really hard situation, just knowing players and knowing that, it's not something that they had anything to do with in so many regards. I do think that there should be punishments against the Canadian Soccer Federation. Then again, I don't think it should be taken out on the players representing the country. And so I agree that the negative 6 point ban feels harsh and it's casting an unfortunate look on Canada soccer that the players don't deserve in so many regards. That being said, it's really interesting being in Sweden right now because a lot of the story is that this taping has gone on well before the 2024 Olympics and it's been happening years throughout. And in the 2021 Olympics, Canada beat Sweden on penalty kicks in the final. And so Sweden's like, well, was there something going on at ours? We practiced PKs the day before the final, did they know where our shots were going to go? And so hearing a Swedish person's perspective, they definitely feel like it's just because they feel like I'm not speaking for a ton of Swedish people. I'm speaking for the Swedish people I talk to. It could potentially feel like they got robbed of their Olympic win years ago. So there's a lot to the story, but it's definitely something I feel like women's soccer isn't only the conversation in a lot of regards in terms of the Olympics. And I feel like it has this time, unfortunately.
Yeah, I wish it was in a more positive light that we were the conversation or topic of but it's just a hard situation for everyone involved. Like I have, like you said, I have no idea what the right answer is or how far and how deep this goes and how many people knew about it or condone this. But well, it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. And if they do stick with the 6 point penalty or deduct it to three, I think that'll make a huge difference in how they perform and how this all turns out in the end. But how's our USA team doing? What are your thoughts on that? Our
Yeah,
performance here?
USA to this point has played 2 games. They have won 3-0 against Zambia and 3-1 or 4-1, my bad, against Germany going into the final game against Australia. They are looking strong. I know I saw a couple people a little worried that we only scored 3 against Zambia, considering they were down a man for a large portion of the game and we didn't score once they were down a man. I think the more crazy conversation out of our pool has been who might take that second place, especially with the Zambia Australia game, which was absolutely nuts. Zambia at one point winning the game 5-2 and the final score being 6-5 for Australia. So that game was just highlight after highlight and goal after goal. Shows, a lot of fight in an Australian team to be able to come back like that. So will they able to secure a spot in the next round? A lot of questions are going to be had about that. But overall, right now, I mean, when you have an offensive line with Trinity Rodman, Sophia Swift, and Mal Swanson operating on the cylinders, I apparently can't talk either. Operating on the cylinders that they are, I think Rose Lavelle during the last game stood out a lot to me. Just she looked extra gritty, extra tough, running all over. I was with people that know nothing about soccer, and they're like, "Dang, like she impressed her." And so I think that there's a lot to say moving forward, and I'm excited about potentially getting out of pool play and what's going to happen next.
Absolutely. While I may not have watched full games, I had been watching a whole lot of TikToks from the Olympic athletes. And let me tell you, I love the Olympic Villa. It is so fun. So fun to sit there and watch these athletes that you watch perform and are so serious and representing your country do like some of the cringiest, like just silly things on social media. And it's been so fun to really feel like you're a part of the journey. And I think that's been the biggest difference between this Olympics and the previous Olympics is I feel like I have a lot more of an insider knowledge of how this is all working and going down because of the use of social media. And I think that's just it's been so fun. Have you been getting the TikToks?
Oh, it's my entire For You page. I want to go to Olympic Village and switch pins so bad. So yeah.
I want Simone Biles or Snoop Dogg's. Oh,
yeah. Where's Flava Flav and Snoop Dogg? There's a lot going on. Once again, going back to my previous statement about how the world feels chaotic. That's why.
So anyway, I want Simone Biles pin. I don't remember personally voting for Snoop Dogg to be our mascot. However, like I'm not mad about it. Like
yeah,
that.
It seems fitting in a lot of regards. So I'm just gonna take it and run with it. I'm glad we're all on the same page with that.
Exactly. The one thing the nation unites on is Snoop Dogg as our mascot. But
all we need.
Exactly. So we covered the college talk, we covered Olympics. Now, come on, Sam, what have you been up to? How has your summer been? What is life in Sweden like for you now? I saw you went on a pretty amazing vacation, so it seemed. So give us all the details, all the updates.
Incredible vacation, incredible little holiday. No, life has been good since we last talked. I am officially halfway through my first pro season, which is insane and exciting and, so many different cylinders. So yeah, we have played 13 games in the Damallsvenskan. I don't know how it became that many that quickly. It just kind of, I feel like I blink and it happened. So yeah, 13 games in a Damallsvenskan play. We're on our holiday break, basically being back in preseason right now. So we got back to work last week after a little 2-week holiday, which was very well needed to reset, recoup, and now get back into it. And we'll play 14 more games. I think 15 more games before the season ends. I know I'm great too. At least I know when my games are and who I'm playing. So our first game back is officially on August 11th. So that's when we'll fully kick back into gear of Damallsvenskan play. And we'll play through November 9th is our last game. So yeah, no, things are good here in so many regards. A lot of my summer was playing through it and playing all these games. I think we ended last season or the first part of the season on a 4-game home stint. So that was incredible just to, be home again and not have to leave. And during that stint, both my parents were able to come and visit. And so I got some family time in Sweden, which was absolutely amazing. And then during our little, 2-week holiday, Trey and I did honeymoon part 2. Figured while we live in Europe, we might as well travel Europe. So went from Sweden to Zurich, hiked in the Swiss Alps, and then took a train down to Italy. spent some time in Rome and Venice, and then got on a 7-day cruise through Greece, stopping in Santorini, Athens, Mykonos, and Olympia. So, I mean, you really, really can't ask for a better vacation than that. That was pretty much like my entire bucket list checked off into 2 weeks. Had an absolute blast doing all of that. And yeah, now refocused, rejuvenated, ready to go back to work. We had, our fitness testing and so much going back last week, which is interesting. I feel like, once again, like college preseason is back, so I have to be in preseason of some sense. And yeah, I'm kind of back at it. I've been fortunate enough to have the play that I've wanted to play in Sweden. I've been fortunate enough to be doing a lot, really, really well with it. And so I've played 90 minutes in every Damallsvenskan game, started all 13 of them, various positions, depending on what formation we're playing, kind of switching in this hybrid left back, left center back role that I did for the last 5 years at Iowa. So nothing really new in that regard. And yeah, it's just a lot of really exciting things going for further. I've heard a lot about what a Swedish summer would be, and it's everything I could have dreamed of and more. So I think the high we maybe got into the 80s on a handful of days. Most day is 77 and sunny and perfect weather. I know feel like when I go back to the US, I'm gonna like die of heat because I'm not used to it anymore. We've had family and friends come and visit us. Shout out to GSN's Maddie Sabatier coming to Sweden, hanging out with me for a week. And GSN got featured at some EFCO Nora shipping practices when they came hang out and did some social media content there. So that was super fun. And yeah, overall, it's just kind of good to be back at it. And it doesn't feel like much has changed over in my life, but moving forward. And yeah, it feels really weird not being in an Iowa jersey, not being in Iowa right now. I still text with the staff and the girls, and I feel like I'm still connected in a lot of ways, but it's definitely odd. So I think just kind of figuring out what this life post college is like and getting through pro season number 1 is the biggest goal.
Yeah, absolutely. I didn't, okay. Not that I haven't embarrassed myself already this podcast. So you are in summer now, because when you first got there, there was snow on the ground.
Yes, there's snow on the ground. So Swedish spring, I would say, didn't really exist. We went from there was snow in April, like 6 feet, like 6 inches of snow in April, and then it was like boom, summer. So summer, like it's the same as the U.S. at auto guards. It was like a mild June and then a nice July, and now going into August, it'll start to get a little bit cooler. The days, I think, is what tripped me up the most. In the summer, the sun doesn't go down. But that's because like in the winter, the sun doesn't really come up. And so I think it would be like the sun rose at 3:30 in the morning and set at 11:45 at night. So there's barely any time the sun was down. It was bright all the time. Super crazy. I know there are parts of Sweden, especially northern Sweden, where the sun doesn't go down and it's like 2 in the morning and it's bright. Like it could be noon. So that was weird to get used to in a lot of regards, but the days are getting shorter again. And, there's actually like a sunset coming around at a normal time right now. So all the goods, but yeah, life is good here in Sweden in the pro season. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it and can't wait to keep competing.
Yeah, absolutely. So this second portion of it kind of follows the same timeline as the college season.
Yeah. And yeah, exactly. So our season is basically like if this college season was like time 2. And so yeah, we have we have a half stint that goes from April to July and then August to November.
Gotcha. And did you sign a 1-year contract with them?
I did sign a 1-year contract. So technically my contract ends in November. However, I believe at this point it'll be public news that I have officially been offered a contract extension and I have signed. So I will be in Sweden times year 2 back at EFCO Norrköping for next year. And I'm really excited about it.
Oh my God, that's awesome. Congratulations.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's been a long time coming. I got offered, a contract extension, and I'm excited to be back in Sweden. I think for me personally, for my career on a lot of regards, I think it makes a lot of sense to stay where I'm at and keep growing and keep becoming a better player overall. And I have a team and a club in a city that believes in me, and it's exciting to be able to know that I'm going to stay here. I think for a long time, which like, a 6-month period, I was in Iowa and then I was back home and then I was bouncing around in so many different places. So I bought a plant for my house today because I'm like, I'm going to be here a year, so I can buy a plant. And just a lot of things like that. So it's really exciting to know I'm going to be back in Sweden, and I'm excited about it.
Yeah, yeah, that's awesome. So what's the end goal for you now? Is it to come back to the US or are you thinking about maybe becoming Swedish?
That's a big question. I think right now it's get through year one. I know where year two is going to be. I think my goal right now is year one, figure out what being a pro is like, get better. Year two, we're going all out. Not that we haven't in year one, but we're going balls to the walls there. And then year three, we'll see what happens. I think that's, one of the biggest things about, of course I have goals, I have trajectories of where I see myself, but also football is so weird and so many opportunities come up in so many different ways. And also, like we've kind of touched on, you also never know when that final whistle's going to blow. And so I don't want to catch myself looking too far and not living in the now. And so I'm excited about being able to live in the now right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that.
It's
How's
part of
Trey?
the Swedish lifestyle that's adapted to me. We're a lot chiller in Sweden, apparently. So I've caught myself slowing down a lot more here, which is amazing.
You know what? I think you probably needed it considering the chaos that was ensuing your last couple months there. You could use some chill time, some
Yeah,
downtime.
a little bit.
Trey, happy to stay.
Trey's happy to stay. Trey is, Sweden's number one rover. I feel like in Norrköping, we got a new dog in our house at all times to keep our puppy loving since we can't really get one. We always got dogs around. Our current one's name is Simba. He's adorable. If you ever caught me laughing on those video streams because Trey was behind the camera lifting up Simba like Simba, that happens a lot. So yeah, maybe we won't be Norrköping's number one rover after this. Anyway, beyond that, I think we're both really excited about where the community is, Trey's involvement. And yeah, it's gonna be really good.
That's awesome. I'm so happy to hear that. And breaking news here on the Big Life podcast.
We're just dropping bombs all the time. Keep turning in to figure out what the heck the Big Ten's gonna be and Sam's contract, status. Simple things.
Honestly, they might know before I do what the Big Ten will look like.
I have a strong feeling I will. I'm not even gonna lie. I feel like that's exactly what's gonna happen, and I can't wait to hold it over your head.
I mean, just please, like, rip the band-aid off, let me know, because I'm definitely not going to find out first at this rate. Like, I have no idea what's going on. But I almost like it better that way. I'm like, our next game's August 10th, I don't know.
Some things never change, Jay. All right.
I am who I am.
All of that being said, we're so happy to be back. I'm so happy to have my weekly therapy talks with Jay that we just happen to record and other people listen to. We're so excited for what the season can hold. We have fun guests in the making. We even hear that maybe some people from the current Olympics might be on. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. It's the only hint I'll give about that. We have a brand new soccer league starting in the US in August. The USL Super League. We didn't even talk about that. So excited to start covering that, seeing, hopefully getting some guests on from the Super League, get some inside look about what's going on in the USL, as well as always covering other pro soccer, other pro events. And we got a good roster of guests lined up for this season. So stay tuned, guys. As always, I'm at Sam Carey. Jay is at Jordan_Wickus. Find us out for questions. Contact Girls Soccer Network, all of the above. We can't wait to hear from you, and soccer on.
Bye, guys.